Moving on, the existence of a secret biometric database, including personal information and images of the majority of Israelis, has just been leaked. But far from apologizing or destroying the secret list, Israel's new Ministry of Interior is hoping to legalize it, and with far fewer safeguards than the official biometric database has. So what does this breach of trust and privacy actually mean for Israeli citizens? Here in the studio to discuss is legal counsel for the Israeli digital rights movement, attorney Jonathan Klinger. Jonathan, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me again.
It's our pleasure. So how did this happen? And why did this database, why was it even created in the first place? What's the background here?
So back in 2009, when the discussions on the biometric database arose, the Ministry of Interior had a problem. They wanted an auxiliary photo database which would allow the clerks in the ministry, where you come to get service, to just type your name, ID number, and get your photo, so they can recognize you when you get service, no problem. But because photos are subject to biometric search and manipulation, the legislation said that this database should be free from biometrics, meaning that all photos, images should be degraded in quality and resolution and be in a non-biometric quality. The thing is that from 2009 until today, technology evolved. It became better, and photos which were not subject to biometric search 12 years ago are today quite easily searched and indexed. So what happened is, instead of reducing the quality of that database, which is held by the government, they decided to promote it and use it. And this comes with a few other databases that the Israeli government is pushing nowadays. The first is the police database, the Hawkeye database, which is supposed to track license plates in real time and people in CCTV walking in the street. And other databases which we see on a day-to-day basis rising now, mostly because of COVID, but from other matters. What we see is an actual leak from the biometric database. We had an agreement with the government. We will provide them our fingerprints, our photos for a certain purpose. They will limit the use only for a small number of people, only for a limited purpose. But they broke that agreement. They went and breached our trust. They went and set up a new database which may be abused, as we see on a day-to-day basis.
Have we seen evidence of potential abuses?
In this database, not yet. But we've seen, just in the last week, if I can go through a few breaches, we had a police officer which was indicted this week for abusing police databases and sending material from investigations to his lover. We've had a few other breaches that we can show that people with access to government databases sold that material to private investigators. We see on a day-to-day basis that government workers are indicted for database access. It's one of the most popular crimes in the public service, and we know that there won't be a database which would not be breached later on. The Israeli Ministry of Interior was already subject to a big data breach back in 2006.
The elections and since then.
In 2006, when one of the employees took a CD with all the database to, well, use it as a dating service.
All right. Well, what's currently being done about it? How dangerous is this to the fabric of our society, to the trust between the public and the government? And what sort of recourse is there for the Israeli public?
So the problem is that, unlike the biometric database, which does have some safeguards, this database has your photo next to your ID number and name. In the biometric database, there's an intermediate identifier, meaning that next to your photo, there's a number, and in a separate database, there's this number and your details. It's two separate databases. This is meant to ensure that it's
some measure of security.
Yeah. This one isn't. And if someone is able to access this database, I'm not saying steal, but access, make a query on this database, he can look up, either get a photo of a person based on their details, or if he has the ability to run a biometric search, do a reverse lookup. Pick a photo of a person and grab his details from the database. This allows a hostile entity to identify any Israeli. This could be either a terrorist group, a criminal organization, or just someone who met a girl in a bar and has a friend that works for the Ministry of Interior with some access, and he wants to find out who is she.
So this goes far further than a potential for government abuse of this sort of leak. This could pose a physical risk to Israelis.
There's no big government conspiracy, no big government trying to track everyone
Just
down.
negligence is what it sounds like.
In most cases, what you see is things that are, they're not romantic, but they're relationship related. You see, like you saw in the COVID tracing apps, you saw that the Shin Bet database was abused, and one employee in the call center used it to put his ex in quarantine. You see that a lot of police officers use this data to get revenge on their exes, to find out the details. These databases are abused by people, not by big governments. Sure. And because we know that this is the nature of humans, to be picky and nosy, we have to reduce this.
Do we see a potential for a class action lawsuit or some sort of recourse on the behalf of the American public or the Israeli public?
So, under Israeli law, class action lawsuits are not possible on invasion of privacy if there's no consumer relationship. Moreover, even if we had this possibility, under Israeli law, when there's a class action against the government can say, I've stopped the wrongdoing and not pay any damages. It's okay because we want to protect the public pocket. We want to keep our money. But on this case, we might go to the Supreme Court for an appeal if the authority does not delete this database.
All right. Jonathan Klinger, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you for inviting me again.